So we're a little into the halfway mark of All Out. We are at episode 12, and this was a pretty fun episode, if I have to say so myself. In this week's episode, we had a joint practice match, and I know a lot of people are wondering, when are we going to get official matches, and even I'm wondering as well. But I think highly that we are going to get a official match very soon. So this joint practice match, actually consisted of Keijo, who we saw earlier in this series, back in possibly episodes 3 to 4 or 5, and they came back in this week's episode, and now they're playing along with Jinko, and we're going to see, we saw some, very impressive plays, and as well as some dynamic relationships between characters from Keijo's team and Jinko's team. We all know that in Keijo, especially with the captain Taira, he is very fascinated by Sekizan, and it's to show, it was very funny how Sekizan is just not having anything with Taira. He's just like, he gets annoyed easily by him, and they were put on the same team. And then we get to see the dynamic plays of Sumiyaki and Miyuki. Might I add, anybody that was thinking that Miyuki was a second-year student, he's actually, they said in this episode, he is actually a first year, just like Sumiyaki. And as well as Gion, what he learned from last week's episode, from the advice that was given to him by the Karashima brothers, he actually used in this week's episode. He utilized that information that he has gotten. So to start off with, the two teams are mixed together and are broken with forwards and backs facing against each other. Sekizan and Taira on one team, and Miyuki and Sumiyaki are on one team. Now, I have to note that concerning Sumiyaki and Miyuki, we all knew from the very beginning that they used to be on the same middle school rugby team, and that Miyuki used to be the captain of that rugby team. But what really fascinated me was, it was told in this episode that Sumiyaki, his style of play, the way you could bring it out is that the stronger his opponent or the stronger his teammate is, the better his plays become. And we saw how well he and Miyuki played, even though they are not on the same team and haven't been on the same team for at least a year. We saw where, because they relied on each other so much, so because they trust each other so much, you saw how well they're capable of playing with each other, where because Sumiyaki is on Jinko, he was able to analyze his teammates' moves. He was able to analyze their plays. So he relied that information to Miyuki, and Miyuki was able to play his style because he is a very fast player. And then we're in episode, like, because of these different players, they're also learning information off of each other. They're learning each other's style as well. So it was something very unique that we don't always see within most sports anime. Now, we also saw throughout the game, we saw Gion taking notes. And even though his notes were very simple, it was very Gion-like of him to do. Something that he is able to gain from watching them play. Of course, he was subbed into the game, and he's telling Matsu that I got it, because Matsu is wondering, okay, Gion clarified to everyone that he is playing as a flanker. And Matsu was wondering if he knew the details of what it is to be a flanker. Of course, Gion is running around very loosely on the field, but he is playing a very good, being a very good player on the field. And again, Matsu brings up the idea of, do you know what exactly it means to be a flanker? And Gion is like, I got it. Of course, the way he was playing, by Miyuki's word, the way he was playing was not the ideal way of a proper flanker. And Gion, from the advice he got from Sekito, was that a flanker is basically an all-around player. They play both the defense and the offense. So, and they're the first ones to get to the ball. So with that advice that he got from Sekito, the number 1 or the number 2 flanker in Kanagawa, he utilized that in his way of playing. And the way he was playing, we always knew Gion is into tackling his opponents by their legs. But of course, he's playing against guys that are twice or three times bigger than him, taller or just body size bigger than him. So, because of that, Gion kind of changed his playing style from when we first saw him in the beginning of the series up to now. He changed how he actually goes offensively towards an opponent. Instead of just aiming for their legs, which would have hurted him because they would have kicked and thrown him to the side, he's actually aiming for the torso, because while you're able to do a feint with your upper body, or you can change directions with your legs, you cannot change which direction as easily with your torso. So Gion aims for the player's belly button, and we saw where Miyuki, it was very funny to see Miyuki, like, he's so into rugby, and might I add, he's very interested in Gion as a rugby player, even to the point of calling him by his first name, Kenji. As we know, in Japan, people do not call each other by their first names here, like here in the West. Actually, if you call a person by their first name, it's either you're really close to them, they're a relative, or they're like a lover to you. So for him to call Gion by his first name shows that he has a high level of respect for Gion as a rugby player, and the fact that, you know, he possibly may think of him as a very close friend and, like I said, a rugby player. So the game ends, and we don't know exactly who had won, but it was a very fun match to see, as well as because we get to see how these two teams work together if, say, they were on the same team and playing against each other. So they gained something out of this joint practice match. And it was also funny moments in the episode where Sekizan was beat up Taira. We see where Miyuki, he's crying because he's like, you know, I'm really getting into the game, and I'm seeing all these players, I'm seeing how Gion is playing, and you're stopping the game. And even where Sekizan is telling, you know, scolding Gion, telling him, you never caught the ball once, and we're going to tell you how to play the proper position of a flanker. So there was many funny moments in this week's episode, and we're bound to see something very interesting between these two teams in the future. Now that they kind of got a taste of what players do, and like just overall their playing style, you can imagine what type of match it will be when Keijo and Jinko face up against each other in official matches. So if you guys saw this week's episode of All Out, episode 12, do drop a comment down below on how you felt about this week's episode. What are you expecting for next week's episode? And the fact that we're like basically in the halfway mark, because we do have 25 episodes. I do believe by next week, or possibly by episode 14, there is going to be a change of the opening and ending, but I'm not too sure about that. But either way, the links are in the description box as always, so you guys could go check that out. And I'm Kimmy Chan of Anime Legends Podcast, and I will see you guys later. Bye!